Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Terminator lab. This is the video number 18. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have migrated our DHCP server using a script, and we have discussed this migration process in two videos. The first video is discussing, or the first video is discussing the script theoretically, and the second video is implementing this video practically. And we have done this, and we have successfully migrated our DHCP server. This we have done in the previous video. Okay, it was practically migrated, everything was working fine, and we have finished the process successfully. Today we will begin another process of migration, but today we will migrate the file server. If you remember from the graph here, we have, this is our old server. We have already migrated the DHCP from this old server, which has Windows Server 2012 R2 installed on it. We have migrated it to this server with this name that has Windows Server 2022 Data Center installed on it. This is the first role that we need to, or that we have successfully migrated. We need to migrate the file server from this server to this server. So what does our file server contain? Our file server contains two important things we need to migrate successfully. First of all, we need to, this is the Active Directory home folder. We need to migrate the Active Directory home folder, which is currently on our file server. Okay, and we need to migrate another thing also. We need to migrate our department shares. We have a group policy or mapping group policy. We are mapping the department shares, okay, using network drives, okay, or this is the group policy that will map our department shares and network map drives. If we can see here, this is a user. When he logs in, this user is a member of the HR department, so we can see that the department share of the HR is currently mapped. Okay, this is the M drive, okay, for the department of HR, and we can see that this window or this folder, this is the Active Directory home folder, and this is also mapped, okay, to this user. Okay, so we need to migrate the department shares, and we need to also migrate the Active Directory home folders. And by migrating the department shares, we need also to modify the group policy that will map this department share as a network map drive, because the file server name will be changed. So not only this, we can see here that we have already also some quotas on the folders or the shared folders. These also need to be migrated, and there is some file screening rules also need to be migrated. So we need to migrate our file server folders. Okay, these folders should be mapped by their SMB shared permissions and their NTFS permissions, and we need to migrate the quotas or the file system quota or the quota for the folders, and to migrate also the rules or file server screening rules. Okay, these all need to be migrated. So we will do this, or we should do this using a couple of methods. Okay, first of all, we can use server migration tool. That this is the first tool that I will use, and this is also, it is an unknown tool that most of us don't use. Most of us, when we are migrating file server, we are using the robocopy tool. This is a very good tool, by the way. I'm not saying it is not good, but there is other methods that you can use to migrate folders from a file server to another file server. So we will use a couple of methods to migrate the file server folders and share permissions and NTFS permissions. And then as for the file quota and file screening, we'll use scripts to migrate these things, okay, or we'll use a script to create it from scratch. Okay, so let's see first of all what are the methods that we can use to migrate a file server. According to Brad, there is a couple of methods that we can use. If we listen to it, let me show you all what are the methods to migrate a file server.
Sure. Here are some methods you can use to migrate a Windows file server using Storage Migration Service. This is a built-in tool in Windows Server 2019 and Windows Server 2022 that makes it easy to migrate data from one file server to another. It supports both physical and virtual servers, and it can migrate file shares, NTFS permissions, and even user profiles. Using Robocopy, this is a command line tool that can be used to copy files and folders from one location to another. It's a versatile tool that can be used to migrate data in a variety of scenarios. Using a third-party migration tool, there are a number of third-party migration tools available that can be used to migrate Windows file servers. These tools typically offer a more polished user experience than Robocopy, and they may also offer additional features, such as the ability to migrate user profiles or applications. Using a backup and restore solution, if you have a backup of your file server, you can restore the backup to a new server. This is a simple and straightforward way to migrate your data, but it may not be the most efficient option. The best method for migrating a Windows file server will depend on your specific needs and requirements. If you need to migrate a large amount of data, or if you need to preserve NTFS permissions and user profiles, then Storage Migration Service is a good option. If you're looking for a more affordable option, then Robocopy may be a better choice. And if you need a tool that offers a more polished user experience, then a third-party migration tool may be the best option for you. Here is a table summarizing the different methods for migrating a Windows file server. Method, pros, cons. Storage Migration Service, easy to use, supports both physical and virtual servers, can migrate file shares, NTFS permissions, and user profiles, requires Windows Server 2019 or Windows Server 2022. Robocopy, versatile, can be used to migrate data in a variety of scenarios. Command line tool, can be difficult to use for complex migrations. Third-party migration tool, offers a more polished user experience, may offer additional features, can be expensive. Backup and restore solution, simple and straightforward, may not be the most efficient option. I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any other questions.
So these are the methods that we can use to migrate a file server from one system to another. Okay, these are the methods, but actually we will discuss two methods. One of them is not listed here, which is the server migration tool, and the other one is the Robocopy tool. We will discuss both tools that we can use to migrate a file server. Okay, let's see what is the server migration, or what is Windows Server Migration tool.
Windows Server Migration Tools is a set of tools that can be used to migrate roles, features, operating system settings, and other data and shares to servers, including later versions of Windows Server. It is a feature of Windows Server, and so it is easily installed using the Add Roles and Features wizard, or PowerShell. The Windows Server Migration Tools include the following tools. Server Migration Wizard. This wizard helps you migrate roles, features, and settings from one server to another. Data Migration Wizard. This wizard helps you migrate data files and folders from one server to another. Share Migration Wizard. This wizard helps you migrate file shares from one server to another. User State Migration Tool. This tool helps you migrate user profiles and settings from one server to another. The Windows Server Migration Tools are a powerful tool that can be used to migrate Windows servers to new hardware or to a new version of Windows Server. They are easy to use and can help you to migrate your data and settings with minimal disruption. Here are some of the benefits of using Windows Server Migration Tools. Ease of use. The Windows Server Migration Tools are easy to use and can be used by IT professionals of all levels of experience. Flexibility. The Windows Server Migration Tools can be used to migrate a wide variety of data and settings, including roles, features, operating system settings, data files, folders, and file shares. Compatibility. The Windows Server Migration Tools are compatible with a wide range of Windows Server versions, including Windows Server 2019 and Windows Server 2022. If you are planning to migrate a Windows server, I recommend using the Windows Server Migration Tools. They are a powerful tool that can help you to migrate your data and settings with minimal disruption.
Okay, so this is one of the methods that we will use or discuss. And actually it is a very simple tool. You can add it from Server Manager, add roles and features, and it has a PowerShell command, so we can use it using a graphical interface or read it through the PowerShell. So we will migrate our file server shares and the department shares and the Active Directory home folders. We will use the server migration tool through the PowerShell module or through the PowerShell commands. So this is a very simple and straightforward method for migration, and actually it is very simple and easy, more than the robocopy. So let's see how this method will be used. So let's go and see first what we will do. First of all, we will have a script. This script, first of all, to use the server migration tool, first of all, we need to create two folders on the new file server. These two folders, one of them is the data cube. This contains all of the department shares or the department folders. This should be created on the new file server. And another folder called bioships, which contains the Active Directory home folders. Okay, so these two folders are already on the old file server. We need to create two on the new file server with exactly the same name. Okay, and then the server migration tool will copy the folder from the old server to the new server, and not only copying the folders and the subfolders and the shared permissions and the NTFS permissions. So we need to create two folders with the same name on the old file server. We need to create two folders with the same name on the new file server, and then the server migration tool will copy the folders from the old server to the new server with the file share permissions and the NTFS permissions. And by the way, it will share the folders, so it will not copy the folders, it will share the folders and put the share permissions and the NTFS permissions. So we need to create two folders on the new file server, and then we need to go and use a PowerShell command to install Windows Server Migration Tool. This is it. This is the command. We will open a PowerShell command and tell to him to install Windows feature migration, computer name, and then our computer name. Okay, this is the first thing we need to do. Okay, and after installing the feature, okay, we need to install, by the way, we need to install the feature on the new file server. Okay, so this is one of the things. You will not install the migration tool on the old server. We need to install it on the new server. Okay, and then we will do the second line. We need to export this tool. Okay, so this is a tool. We need to export it, and then you will export it in a folder, and then copy this folder on the old server and then initialize it or use it. Okay, so here why we need to do this step, because the server migration tool version should be the same on both servers, and the version should be the latest one. So for example, we have a situation, we have Windows Server. If we see our graph here, we have this server has Windows Server 2012 R2, okay, and we have this server that have Windows Server 2022 data center installed on it. So the data or the my server migration tool should be used, okay, or installed on this server, and then copy this tool and put it on the old server. Okay, so one question arises here. Does this server doesn't have the server migration tool? It is already there, but this is an old version. Okay, we need to use the new version. Okay, so the new version of server migration tool, server migration tools can work on all systems, but the opposite is not working. So a server migration tool on Windows Server 2012 R2 will not work on the Windows Server 2022 data center. So what we will do, we will install the server migration tool on this server and then export it and import it there. In simple terms, we will export it and then use it on the old server, and then we will initialize both server migration tools on this server and this server, and then a copy and transfer process will work. So let me again go to the script. We will this line, it will export the server migration tool. We will export it and then copy it, okay, and put it on the old server. So here I'm telling him that we need the package. So for example, here I'm saying to him that I need to export the tool of migration or server migration tool, and this tool should work with the operating system Windows Server 12 R2. So we need to be very careful. We need to tell him that we are exporting the server migration tool that should work with the 64-bit platform and with the Windows Server 12 R2 operating system. And this is the path that will export to, or it will export the tool to. Then we take this folder and put it on the old server and then begin working with it. Okay, so I will need to show you all a little bit of a screenshot. So here we can see that we install the feature, and then this is the command. We will tell him to export the package. Here it is 68-bit or 86-bit. We don't need this. And this is another operating system, or Windows Server 2018, but this is not the case. Okay, so this is the command. We need to go to C Windows System 32 server migration tools and then issue this command to export the tool or the server migration tool. Okay, it will export it to a certain folder. We will copy it and put it on the old file server. Okay, so what after that, what we need to do, we need to open the server migration tool on the old server and on the new server. We will open it through the PowerShell. So we'll have two PowerShell sessions or PowerShell window, one on the old server and one on the new server. Okay, and these two PowerShell windows should have the server manager migration PowerShell commands installed on them. Okay, so we need to add or to need to run this line on both PowerShell windows on the two servers. Okay, to add the server manager migration tool PowerShell commands. Okay, and then what we need to do, we need on the new server, the new file server, to issue this command receive data and then press enter. Okay, after pressing enter, it should ask you to create a password. This password should be shared between the two file servers. So we will issue receive data server or receive data on the new file server, and then we need to go to the old file server and tell him to send the data. So this is receive and this is send. This is the name of the server, the path or the folder we need to send, and the destination. Remember, this is the destination on the new server. Okay, and this include all recursive. This will include all of the subfolders. So these two lines will send the folders or the old folders from the old server to the new server, including their SMB share permissions or file share permissions and NTFS permissions. If you press this line, it will ask about a password. So for sending and receiving, you should provide a password to verify or to make sure that these two servers are authorized to send data to each other. It is something like a secret key are shared between these two servers. So we will tell him to receive data, okay, on the new server, and then to send data on the old server. Okay, we will first send the department share folders or the department folders, and then we will send the Active Directory home folders. Okay, so with this process finished, we return back to our script. Okay, we need to tell him to modify or to import a new group policy that will change or it will map the new department shares, okay, based on the new file server. So if we see our screenshot here, if you go there, we can see here, for example, this server name is changed. So we need to modify the group policy to point to the new file server with the new department shares. So we need to modify this mapping group policy. And by the way, I have already made a group policy and put it on the new server, just needed to import it only. This group policy is already modified and it is pointing to the new file server. Okay, so this is the third line. We need to go we will do these two lines, and then we will run all of these commands, and then we will run this line. Okay, and then after that we need to this, by the way, this script will run from the new file server. Okay, and then we need to make a remote PowerShell session to the old file server, and we need to uninstall the file server feature or the file server resource manager. So we have already moved all of the folders and the shares, you need to install the file server feature from the old file server, okay? And we need to restart the PC after that, and then we can exit the PS session and tell him to remove the PF session after that. So this is basically, or this is very, very simple thing to do. And then we need to, after that, install the file server resource manager feature on the new file server. And then there is a couple of lines we need to implement. The first line is to make the quota. Remember, we need to migrate the quota. So here I'm telling him to put quota on the department share folders. Okay, this is for 40 gigabytes. Okay, and we will do another one for the do another one for the Active Directory home folders, okay? And then these two lines to make file screening options to block audio and video on these two folders, okay? And at the end, the last line, it will record everything related to exceeding the quota or putting an unsupported file on the file server. This will be recorded in the event log. So these are all lines related to the file server quota and the file server screening options, okay? So by using this script, we have migrated everything. We have migrated the department shares, the Active Directory home folders, okay, and the file quota and the file screening options. Remember, there is one thing remaining. We need to modify something else after migrating the Active Directory home folders. The file server name in this section, okay, so the Active Directory home folder is changed from one server to another, so we need to modify the file server name in every Active Directory user properties. We need to do this, okay, we need to do this. We will do this after the migration using this script. So this script, it is telling him to select all of the Active Directory users and change the name of the file server from this old file server to this new file server. Okay, so this is one thing we need to stress on, because the Active Directory home folder, it is migrated, but still this setting, or still the user setting in the Active Directory, it is pointing to the old server, not the new server. So we need to change it. Okay, so we will change it using this script. Okay, so after doing this, our migration process is complete. Okay, so this is how we can use the server migration tool to migrate department shares and Active Directory home folders. This is a very simple way, because the server migration tool will copy the folders, share the folders, set the SMB share permissions, set the NTFS share permissions, and everything will be done in one line or in two lines at most. But as for the RoboCopy has a different method. I have another script to use the RoboCopy. Okay, I will show you all this step. By the way, before using this method of the RoboCopy, I need to point to this website. Okay, it is called Sketch. Okay, this contains a documentation or an article how you can migrate the file server from one server to another using the RoboCopy. And he is here explaining the different switches for the RoboCopy command. Every command he is explaining it in full details. This article is from two parts. This is part 1 and part 2. So this is sketch.com insight/how to perform file server migrations using RoboCopy part -1. Okay, so this is, I need also all of you to see it, because this is a very good article. You will all get benefit from it. Okay, so what we'll do here, this is the script. If you are using the RoboCopy, we will use this script to migrate our file server. First of all, I'm telling him to this script to log all of what happening in this script in a certain folder. Okay, this is start transcript, and then we need to install the file server resource manager feature on the new file server. So through it we can set the quota and the file screening, and then copy shared folders from the old file server to the new file server, including Active Directory home folders. So here, these are the two lines using RoboCopy. The first line to copy the data cube or the data cube from the old server to the new server. Okay, copy all, and this is the line, and this is the second line to copy the department folders and the Active Directory folders, and then share folders again on the new file server and apply SMB share permissions. Remember, when I was first creating the file server on the old file server, I have run some scripts. So these scripts is to set the SMB share permissions on the copied department shares. Okay, so this as if I am applying or I am adding the new or I am adding the SMB share permissions again. Okay, these scripts we have discussed before when we were creating the old file server and setting the SMB share permissions, the NTFS permissions. These are the same scripts. So the three lines will set the SMB share permissions. And then this line will import the new mapping group policy that will be pointing to the new file server and the new department shares. Okay, and then these couple of lines we need to this is referring to the Active Directory home folders folder. This is we will need to share it, and then to set the SMB share permissions, and then we need also to set the NTFS permissions. This is one thing also we need to focus on. I didn't put the NTFS permissions. This is one thing we need to stress on. We didn't put it. Okay, so these are the three lines, and then we will run the directory migration. So after copying the Active Directory home folders and putting the SMB share permissions and the NTFS share permissions on them, we need to change or tell him, or we need to change the name of the server, okay, from the old server to the new server. Oh, this is the script. Okay, remember I have showed you all this script that will change the old server name to the new server name. Okay, so after that is done, we need to run another script that will set the quotas and the file screening part of it. These are the three lines or the four lines here. These are the file server quota and the file screening. So if you go there, this is the script, and then stop logging, and then this is the end of the script. Okay, so this is how we can use the Robocopy and how we can use the Server Manager migration tool or server migration tool. We have two methods, and I prefer to use the server migration tool. It is very, very simple. We can see here that the Robocopy is much more uh, uh, longer in implementing. Okay, and by the way, please refer to my video concerning creating the file server and the department shares or SMB shares and NTFS share permissions. I have discussed these couple of lines here before. I discussed them before. Okay, so we will see the best and very simple way to migrate a file server is to use the server migration tool. So this video we have discussed all of the scripts theoretically. In the upcoming video we will see that in a practical way. We will use the server migration tool in a practical way to migrate our file server department folders and shares and Active Directory home folders. Hope this video is informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.